I'm Katie Couric. Tonight, the scandal in the Senate. Powerful Republicans abandon Larry Craig. Because of his arrest in a men's room, several GOP colleagues want him out now. Katrina, 2 years later. On the anniversary of the nation's worst natural disaster, a city feeling angry and ignored, where crime rages out of control.
What is it that prompts you to say, I have to bring a gun to work?
Oh, that's an act of desperation.
Danger in the air. Inspections turn up more problems with the most widely used plane in the sky.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. Last week, most Americans had never even heard of Senator Larry Craig. But tonight, the Idaho Republican finds himself at the center of a growing scandal that began with a sting in a Minnesota men's room earlier this summer. It didn't take long for prominent members of his own party to distance themselves and pressure him to quit his senior committee posts. More now from our chief political correspondent, Jeff Greenfield.
I am not gay.
All day long, Senator Craig's list of Republican allies was shrinking almost by the hour. Senator John McCain, a presidential contender, flatly called for his resignation. Minnesota Senator Norm Coleman, facing a tough re-election battle next year, did the same, saying, Senator Craig pled guilty to a crime involving conduct unbecoming a senator. He should resign. The calls followed yesterday's move by presidential candidate Mitt Romney, who dropped Craig as his Idaho chair. Why this rapid retreat? The answer is that a specter is haunting the Republican Party, the painful memories of last year's midterm elections. Last fall, voters were inundated with stories about Republican misconduct, the financial misdeeds of lobbyist Jack Abramov and Congressman Duke Cunningham and Bob Ney. Then came tales of Florida Representative Mark Foley's lurid emails to mail House pages. By Election Day, 41% of voters said corruption was extremely important to them, more than any other issue. And Democrats captured the lion's share of those voters. Now, with next year's elections looming, Republicans are already dealing with a host of problems. An unpopular president, a Democratic opposition that is raising more money, and charges of sexual and financial misconduct confronting Republican office holders from Louisiana Senator David Vitter to Alaska Senator Ted Stevens. The last thing Republicans need is a scandal that strikes at the heart of their claim to represent traditional family values.
You've got people that are representing a certain set of values, and when they fail to live up to those, I think that is disheartening to voters more than anything.
Now, Republicans can take some solace in one big difference with the Mark Foley saga. That happened 2 months before the midterms. There are more than 14 months until November 2008.
So how long do you think he can survive?
A couple of straws in the wind. There was an overnight poll taken in Idaho, appeared yesterday before the stampede away from Foley by 55 to 34%. Voters in Idaho said they thought he'd resign. The Coeur d'Alene Press up in North Idaho had a scathing editorial saying, you didn't level with the people, Senator. It's time to leave.
So if all politics are local, it's bad news for him.
It's hard to, let me put it this way, if I was him, I wouldn't buy any green bananas for a Senate office.
As Bebe Rebozo once said. Jeff Greenfield, thanks very much. Our other top story tonight, the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. It's been 2 years since the storm battered Louisiana and Mississippi, and floodwaters covered 80% of New Orleans. 1,600 people died in the worst natural disaster in U.S. history, and a real recovery is still many years away. Wreaths were laid and bells were rung across New Orleans today to commemorate this day 2 years ago when Katrina went from being a name to a nightmare. The storm ravaged the city, and despite so many promises to rebuild, much of New Orleans remains in ruins.
What do we want? Justice!
Angry protesters took to the streets today, wondering why these streets are still unlivable.
It's been 2 or 3 years and we ain't built yet.
But President Bush, who was also in New Orleans, says the city is coming back to life as he helped bus driver Jen White hang the flag at her new home.
The people in New Orleans who remember what this site was like compared to what it is today, they've got to be full of hope.
New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin made a point of not sharing the stage with the president, but he did share some of his sentiment.
And this city will recover fully, and it will come back.
Edward Conrad, 75, isn't that optimistic. Like so many others 2 years ago, he spent days, 9 days in fact, on his roof.
We kept waiting for the water to go down. The water never would go down.
Conrad's house is just rubble now. He's living in a FEMA trailer in his driveway, haunted by his memories and stockpiling food in case another hurricane hits.
That's the only thing I'd be thinking about.
Sad yet somewhat hopeful memorial services were held for Katrina today, and many remembered the lives that were lost and the dreams that were washed away on August 29th, 2005. Coming up in just a few minutes, Byron Pitts will examine another major hurdle to New Orleans recovery, a murder rate that's going up a lot faster than rebuilt houses. But turning now to safety in the skies and a scary problem with the world's most widely used airliner following an explosion and fire on a Boeing 737 in Okinawa, Japan. The FAA ordered U.S. airlines to inspect hundreds of their own 737s. And now the agency has announced why it wants it done ASAP. Nancy Cordes has the story.
The FAA tells CBS News the inspections it ordered this weekend have already turned up 4 737s with the same problem that caused this China Airlines jet to explode. A loose bolt in the wing slats, which slide forward during takeoff and landing to help stabilize the plane. The FAA is so concerned it's moving up its deadline, giving U.S. carriers just 10 days to inspect the slats on late model 737s.
If this is a safety of flight issue, which it is, they want to make sure that these inspections are done and done at the first possible moment.
Wing slats retract after landing. If the bolt in the slat has come loose, it can roll back into the housing. The slat can push the bolt through the housing, puncturing the wing's fuel tank and starting a fire. Passengers on the burning China Airlines jet managed to escape just in time.
Do we have 2, 3, 4, or half a dozen mechanics that have made the same mistake? Because we have seen that in the past.
The Boeing 737 is a workhorse, the best-selling commercial airliner ever with a strong safety record. Southwest Airlines, whose entire fleet is made up of 737s, says it has already inspected all 280 of its late-model jets, but will not say what it found. Alaska Airlines has checked 18 of its jets and has 37 to go.
It's a very lengthy 6-hour inspection process, and each one of those inspections has determined that the aircraft is functioning normally.
American, Continental, Delta, and Aloha also fly the newer 737s. Boeing has been getting reports of the bolts coming loose since at least 2005 and routinely warns airlines to check them. Now it's helping with these emergency inspections. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Washington.
Meanwhile, NASA said today it's found no evidence that astronauts were drunk or hungover when they headed into space. The unverified stories came out during an earlier investigation of astronauts' health. But NASA's safety chief said today he was unable to find any case in which a crew member was impaired on launch day. Meanwhile, police and officials at Virginia Tech are expected to come under sharp criticism in a report due out tomorrow on the massacre there. Sources tell CBS News that top officials clearly made mistakes the morning last April when a student gunman murdered 32 people. One of the questions raised in the report is why the campus wasn't locked down during the 2 hours between the first shootings at the dorm and the later slaughter at Norris Hall. Now to a potential threat that the FBI is taking very seriously, a new rash of bomb scares spreading all across the country. The targets, major stores and banks. The object is extortion, and at least in some cases, it's working. Justice correspondent Bob Orr is following the investigation.
They are holdups with a twist. No guns or masked men, just a voice on the telephone connected to a foreign account. And whoever is behind the robberies is making off with some cash. This Walmart in Newport, Rhode Island wired $5,000 yesterday to an overseas Western Union office after a mail caller warned he was prepared to set off a bomb inside the store. The Walmart was evacuated. No bomb was found.
This now appears to be some type of elaborate money scam, and it has a lot of similarities to other scams that have been taking place across the country.
The FBI says over the past week, stores and banks in nearly a dozen states from Oregon to Virginia have been targeted in the extortion scheme. It's unclear how many stores have sent money, but in each case, a caller has used a bomb threat to demand cash. And during some calls, the suspect has implied the stores were under surveillance.
He said he had somebody in the building watching us.
Investigators say it's possible the scammer is using the internet to access security cameras inside the stores. And they suspect the telephone threats may be coming from overseas.
Well, there's a lot of similarities, so it makes us think that there's either one person or just a small group involved in this.
The scam did take one strange turn at this Kansas grocery store, when in addition to money, the caller also demanded that customers disrobe.
The building's been searched twice physically by officers. The dogs went through it twice.
So far, no one has been hurt in the telephone holdups. No bombs have been found, and only a few $1,000s has been lost. But with new threats coming in every day, the FBI is anxious for answers. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
Back in 1996, the FBI investigated Richard Jewell, an Atlanta security guard, in connection with the Olympic Park bombing in Atlanta. Richard Jewell died today of complications from diabetes. He was 44. Jewell was never charged with any crime. There is much more CBS News ahead, including a new approach to treating a dangerous disease, asthma. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, there was chaos on the streets as stores were looted and ransacked and violent crime raged. Things have hardly simmered down 2 years later, even though the federal government has sent $86 million to rebuild the city's police department, its courts and jails. New Orleans is on track to lead the nation in per capita murders for a second year. National correspondent Byron Pitts continues our series, The Katrina Recovery, Follow the Money.
2 years after Katrina, the New Orleans sound is a familiar melody of music and rebuilding and crime. Gun sales remain brisk in this city with a deadly distinction: the highest murder rate per capita in the nation, nearly 140 killings so far and counting. And now even those trying to rebuild New Orleans are under fire. In the past month, 3 contractors have been murdered.
I like to think that I'm not paranoid, but I'm scared.
These days, Brian LeBlanc works with a hammer in hand and an assault rifle at the ready.
I just like to keep it close at hand.
What is it that prompts you to say, I have to bring a gun to work?
Oh, that's act of desperation. No meanness intended. That's all self-defense.
This is the door where my son was working.
Self-defense is forcing contractor Pablo Mejia to arm himself and his workers. His son Pablo Jr. was at this house installing a lock when he was kicked, robbed, and shot in the head.
By us arming ourselves and arming our people, we're going to create a war in New Orleans, and that's why we don't want it.
But what choice do you have?
I don't have a choice.
Pablo was a third-generation New Orleans resident. Soon his widow, Louisa, will deliver a 4th generation, their first child.
Mariana.
That was Pablo's idea.
Luisa Mejia says the murders are destroying the very people the city needs most.
My husband was working, trying to make an honest living, supporting his family, trying to rebuild the city.
Contractors like Pablo Mejia work in some of the hardest hit, meanest streets of New Orleans. Many are newly arrived Latino workers, often here illegally. Police say they have become prime targets.
Walking ATMs.
The Hispanic contractors.
Yes.
That's what the thugs in the street call them.
Yes.
Walking ATMs, says New Orleans Police Chief Warren Riley, because they often carry large amounts of cash. But Riley insists we are making progress. The Police Academy is about to graduate its largest class ever, and the Justice Department has made $30 million available to rebuild the city's criminal justice system.
If New Orleans is going to get better, this is a time for it to get better.
Is it better yet?
We're working on it.
But that's little comfort for Luisa Mejia.
They destroyed my life and my daughter's life.
She's moving now. Thieves took her husband and their dreams. Byron Pitts, CBS News, New Orleans.
2 years later, New Orleans' healthcare system is still in critical condition. Tomorrow, meet a nurse who's become a one-woman medical center for those who need help the most. Now an update on the tragic sacrifices of the Hubbard family. 21-year-old Army Corporal Nathan Hubbard, the second member of his family to die in Iraq, was returned to his California home today. He was killed a week ago in a helicopter crash. His brother Jared, a Marine, was killed 2 years ago. A third brother, Jason, is also serving in Iraq. He's returned for Nathan's funeral, which will be held on Friday. As a sole surviving sibling, Jason will not return to a combat zone. When we come back, children and asthma, important new guidelines for parents. Federal health experts came out today with new guidelines for treating asthma, especially in children. Asthma is a huge problem in this country. More than 22 million Americans have it, including 6.5 million children. Doctors hope the new guidelines will help them and their parents breathe easier. Here's Dr. John LaPook.
The first time 11-year-old Dion Jones wheezed, it took his mother's breath away.
He couldn't catch his breath. I thought that he was going to die.
And when the doctor said her son needed inhaled steroids, she was worried about potential side effects. But new guidelines today tell parents and asthmatics not to be afraid of using inhaled steroids regularly. They are the most effective long-term treatment and generally safe, even for children.
The benefits of steroids are that they allow children to maintain their normal lifestyle, to go to school, play, and keep up all of their normal activities.
And the risks?
The risks are really very small.
So you take a deep breath in and out. The new recommendations stress monitoring, not just medication.
And while medication is important, what we've learned is that there's a lot that asthma patients and their families can do to reduce the likelihood of episodes.
Tell me some of the things that trigger an attack for him.
Perfume, dust, having a cold, pets.
More attention should be paid to factors like secondhand smoke and pollution, obesity, sinus infections, and even acid reflux.
The report says children themselves need to be taught to recognize the warning signs and not be afraid to exercise.
Has the asthma affected your ability to play?
Not yet.
Through teamwork with doctors and parents, Dion and kids like him can stay healthy and in the game.
6, 5, oh!
Dr. John LaPook, CBS News, New York.
Dion.
That is the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Next week, I'll be reporting from Baghdad and Damascus in advance of the U.S. military's critical report on how the war is going. Until then, thank you for watching. Good night.